Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Today I've got a special video for you about the MISTI. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the MISTI, just a little bit about it and its build, and then I'm going to go into the different ways you can use it. So, just talking about the MISTI in general, it stands for Most Incredible Stamp Tool Invented. And at first I was thinking, that's kind of expensive for a stamp alignment tool. And I thought that until I got it. And then I realized how sturdy this is. It is very clean and very tight, so the edges are exactly lined up. There's no jiggling of any of the parts. You can go like this. There's no squeaking. There's no moving. I mean, it's just very well built, and it's actually built in the United States. It comes with a lot of grids. You've got a grid on the lid. You've got a grid inside, and then also there's a grid that you can download and print out on transparency that you can then use on top of the paper that you're stamping on. So for example, if you had this piece of paper and you wanted to line something up, you could put this on top of it and line it up that way. So there's lots of ways to line up. Oh, in addition to the rulers that are on all three sides here. So there's lots of ways to make sure that your stamping is perfect with this tool. Now when I first got it, I received this piece also. It says do not discard, it's vinyl cling. So what you want to do is you want to peel this off and adhere it to the top of the lid. Now this grid up here is stenciled on, so the vinyl is just there to protect it. And you want to be careful about your cleaners because alcohol cleaner will wipe off some of this stencil. So you want to just use alcohol-free cleaners. I use alcohol-free baby wipes to clean up my stamps. Another thing that comes with this is a piece of black foam, which at first I was pretty confused. I didn't know what this was for, but it makes perfect sense when you realize that some stamps that you're going to use have rubber, and they're just rubber cling, and you would not need this piece of foam. You would remove this when you're doing your stamping. But then all your clear stamps that don't have the foam in it, you would then put this on top to provide more height, so that when your stamp is on this side and you're stamping it down, it'll reach the paper. So that's what that's for. Now, it does not come with a magnet. You can buy a magnet, which I actually just found one in my drawer. I'm not sure where I got it from, but this is magnetic. So the magnet will hold paper down if you want to use it that way. But if you do want the magnet, then you should order it when you get the MISTI. All right, let me pick this up and show it to you. It's actually a box, which is kind of surprised me because I thought I was going to have this lid that came over. I put my cardstock here, and the lid might kind of roll over my cardstock and smear the stamped image, but it doesn't work that way at all. It's actually a box, and you can see inside here. It's about 1/4 of an inch inside, and the lid lays on top of the platform right here that has the ruler on it. And so with just a little bit of pressure squeezing it this way, you actually stamp it onto your paper. Now if you notice, mine, after just a little bit of use, sorry all the glare here, there's a little crack in the lid. And so this happened, and last night it was 8:00 p.m. my time in Central. And I emailed Ileana, who's the creator of the MISTI, and I told her that I had a crack. This was 8:00 at night, by 6:30 this morning I had 3 emails from her. The first one said that she's really sorry, it's a manufacturing defect, and that she was going to send me a new one. The second email was the shipping notification, and the third email was an email saying that she shipped it, and that if I had any problems with the replacement, I should let her know. So that's pretty amazing, almost borderline absurd customer service in my opinion. So anyway, everything about this so far is great. So let me show you how to use it. Alright, for the first use, I wanted to use something that you really wanted to make sure is straight. So I'm using this long stamp here to show you how to stamp. Okay, so what you're going to do, because this stamp is clear, you're going to need your black foam. So you put your black foam in here. Okay, let's scoot this over a little bit. And then I'm going to take my paper, and typically you would line it up in the lower left-hand corner. And that, it's just easiest to do that. But because I want my stamp to actually stamp over the edge of the paper, I'm just going to scoot my paper this way a little bit. And it's no big deal because it's just a straight line. So to get it lined up, I'm going to take my transparency sheet, which I printed at Kinko's, by the way. And then I'm going to place my line wherever I want it. And I'm going to use this grid to make sure that it's exactly lined up. Oops, on the line here. Alright, then when I have it where I want it, I'm just going to carefully close the lid. And I'm going to push down a little bit. And by doing that, it's going to take the stamp and put it on this side. Now, it'll stick your grid here, but that's okay, you just peel it right off. So now I'm ready to go. All I have to do is ink this up, so I'm just going to take my VersaFine ink. I'm going to ink it up this way. And then I'll close the lid, make sure my paper is where it needs to be, and then I'll just put some pressure and lift it up. And see, it didn't stamp there, and I'm looking to see if it was because I didn't ink it up over there, so I'll just go ahead and put a little bit more ink there. And this is the greatness of it, is that you can stamp again and it goes in exactly the same spot. There you have it. So now I have this perfectly aligned line all the way across. Alright, so what you want to do then is clean off, and I told you I'm using baby wipes, so I'm just going to quickly clean this off. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is put a sentiment on top of that line. So I've decided to use the Simon Says stamp greeting that's really long right here. So I'm going to go ahead and put my cardstock in the lower left hand corner, and then I'm going to use my grid sheet. You don't have to, actually, I didn't have to because I have this line right here. But I'm going to place it so that it's perfectly lined up on my grid. Alright, that looks good. Once I have that done, again, I'm just going to close the lid, push down, and now I'll have my stamp on my lid. And I'm just going to ink it up. And sometimes I get a little bit of ink on the lid, I just wipe it off. Close it, press, and see, my A didn't stamp exactly right. I think maybe I didn't have enough ink on it or something, whatever. You know this happens all the time, right? So I'm going to put a little bit more, make sure my paper is in the lower left hand corner, and then I'm going to press down. And now it's perfect. So you can see how perfectly straight. So if you're OCD like me about lining up stamps exactly right, this would be a great tool for you. Okay, for my next trick, I'm going to be using a 6x6 Impression Obsession background stamp. Now, this stamp already has foam in it, so I'm not going to need this black piece, so I'm going to remove it. Now, if I put my cardstock in the lower left-hand corner here, you'll notice that the stamp can only get to the corner, and there's going to be a little bit of an edge here. So we can't really put the cardstock in the lower left-hand corner. We're going to have to move it up a little bit. So I found the best way to do this is to actually take your background stamp and place it yourself on the lid. So what I've done, I'll put this behind here so you can see the grid. I just line this up a half a grid mark to the left and a half a grid mark up. So I'm going to use the grid as a guide to get it half and half. You could put it one full if you want to. But I don't know, I just found like this was the right thing to do. Okay, so I'm going to get that secured, and then I'm going to move over to this side. Now, you could, because I'm not worried about this way because I've got a lot of space, I just need to worry about it this way. Because I've done, a half a grid mark this way, if I do a full grid mark from this side, I'll be sure that the background stamp goes over the edge of the cardstock. So what I'm going to do, and I want to keep this in place. Now you don't have to secure it. If I had a bigger piece, I could use the magnet to hold it in place up here. But I want the stripes to cover the whole entire thing. You could put surgical tape on the edge if you didn't care if you're going to be trimming it out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually take a piece of tape and put it behind my cardstock. And I'll secure it to here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come one grid mark this way. And I'm going to place it right there and secure it with this tape. Alright, so then I'm going to take my ink. I'm going to ink up this stamp. Alright, once you're done inking, just take it and close the lid and press down. You can lift it up, and it was perfect. Now, if it didn't turn out perfect, I could certainly just do it again, stamp it down. I could ink up some more if I missed a spot and stamp it again. It'll always be in the same spot. So then I can remove it from here, And then you can just clean up with a baby wipe right here, and it comes right off. And then you can also clean your stamp on the side before you remove it. Now, one thing I do want to mention is that sometimes the thickness of the foam might vary. And if you feel like you need to, you can just take some scrap piece of cardstock, put it underneath the cardstock that you're stamping on to give it a little bit more height. So that's an option if you're not getting good coverage on your stamp. Now, another thing I wanted to mention, I'm not going to actually go through the process, but if you wanted to do a rainbow effect, you could put your stamp lined up on this side, put your cardstock here, and then ink this up with some red at the top, stamp it down on your paper, open it up, clean it off, ink this part up with orange, stamp it, and you're always going to get it in the same spot. Clean it off, yellow here, stamp it, there you go. So that's another great use for the tool. Another great use of the MISTI is for solid dies. So when you have a solid die that matches up with a stamp, and you don't know if you should die cut first and then stamp, or stamp and then die cut, I found a way to really make it work with the MISTI. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my Stamp-A-Magic sheet. Now you could use this, or you could use a piece of vellum, anything that's see-through. Acetate would work too. I'm going to put it in the lower left-hand corner. Okay, actually no, I need my, because this is a clear stamp, I need my black foam, so don't forget to put your black foam in there. Then I'll put my Stamp-A-Majig in the lower left-hand corner, and I'm just going to put my, it really doesn't matter where you put your stamp. I'm going to ink it up. Okay, make sure your Stamp-A-Majig sheet is secure, and then stamp your owl, okay? Now, the next thing you want to do is take your owl that you've die cut, and I just use a scratch sheet of paper. And what I'll do is I'll just put some adhesive on the back. It could be temporary or permanent, whatever. Then you'll stick it on here with enough space to kind of hold it with your hand, okay? It seems weird, doesn't it? Okay, so then what you're going to do is you're going to put it underneath here so you can see exactly where you're going to stamp and line it up perfectly with your die cut. Once you have it in place, you just remove this, ink it up again, and then stamp. And there you have it, perfectly stamped right in the center of my owl. So another great way to use this tool. Okay, the final thing I want to talk about is these multi-step stamps. Now, I got this vintage roses set when it first came out, and I worked with it probably at least an hour trying to get these stamps lined up. And I was not able to do that. And I was using my Stamp-A-Majig. I tried several different methods to get them lined up, and maybe it's me, I don't know, but I was not having success. So after I got the MISTI, I decided to go back and try these stamps again. And I was able to work at least the 3-1. The 4-1 is still a little iffy to me. These are very, very detailed stamps. So I'm going to show you really quick how I used the 3-step one with actually just 2 inks. This is the paper I used before. So I'm going to take these 3 right here at the bottom. Now, I should mention that there are charts out there that Altenew has put out about how to line these stamps up. So you can take a look at those. But what I've decided is to use 2 Stampin' Up! Inks, just like I did on that Lotus Blossom set. And so I'll ink up the first one, which is the lightest, the most solid one. I'm going to use my light color, which is Wisteria Wonder. I'm going to ink it up, and then I'll just stamp it right on. Okay, and notice even though I've, flicked it off or whatever, you just put it right back where it was. So I'm going to take this off, and my second stamp, which is the next solid stamp, I'm going to line it up, and it's different than using an acrylic block because when you use an acrylic block, you have more distance from it. I just found that it was much harder to line up with the block. But if I line it up directly on the paper, I was able to really line it up just right and get it right perfect. Now once I've got it perfect, I just close my lid, get the stamp on the lid, and then what I'm going to do is that first one was Wisteria Wonder. This one I'm going to use Elegant Eggplant, but I'm going to stamp off first. Okay, so I'm going to ink this up so that it's a little lighter ink in between the Elegant Eggplant and the Wisteria Wonder. So just take a scratch sheet, put it right there, stamp it, and then I'm going to stamp it again. Actually, you know what? I don't like the way that's stamped, that inked. Ink that again. My ink pad's really old, like 5 years old. I want to say it's really old. Okay, stamp off again, and then stamp. That's looking good. Okay, and then I'll take this off. Once again, use the third stamp, line it up by hand. Once you get it lined up, close it up. And now I'm going to go straight Elegant Eggplant. I'm not going to stamp off this time. This came out very pretty. I really like this a lot. So it actually worked. So anyway, I think the MISTI, if you're having trouble with Stamp-A-Ma-Jig or you're trying to be absolutely perfect, this tool is great. I'm very happy with it, and I highly recommend it. I know I'm going to be using it a lot. Even though it is a little bit pricey, I think it's worth it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.